right. Final question here comes from William. He asked, with seemingly every aspect of government, culture, and academia overtaken by woke nonsense, how do we not totally despair? When the State Department is celebrating preferred pronouns rather than worrying about getting our remaining patriots out of Afghanistan, when Cardi B is celebrated as a brave, empowered female woman, and women like Condoleezza Rice or Ayaan Hirsi Ali are denigrated and denounced, or when major scientific publications are more concerned with the racial equity of citations than the validity of their findings, how are we to even begin to return to an iota of normalcy? Give me reason to be hopeful. He asked that of the author of Woke Anti-Racism, or Woke Racism. Sorry,
Woke racism.
That's an important error. It's racism, but it's woke racism. How can we avoid total despair?
Because there's a pushback happening. And you're going to read about it from many people as a racist backlash. That's not what it is. It's that this wokeism expressed itself quite extremely during the pandemic for various reasons. And an awful lot of play acting has been happening. But I think there is an intelligent pushback against the excesses. And actually, in my book, at the end, I list some of those things as they were by even the end of 2020. Back then, I was loath to say that we were seeing a systematic pushback, but now I'm not as scared as I used to be. For a scientific journal to really be more concerned with having brown faces in its heads, in its headlines, than what the articles actually say. I had to talk about faith. I have faith that that's going to turn out to be a fashion that people are going to remember having really crested early in the 2020s. I think that we're going to get back to at least 2018 or 19. Now, Cardi B being more interesting than Condoleezza Rice, that's old news. There were people writing doctoral theses on Lil' Kim 25 years ago who were much more interested in her than in Donna Brazile. That's life. But I think we're seeing a pushback against the worst of what's going on. I have more heart every week in seeing somebody who just stands up and says no. And if enough people do it, we'll just get back to normalcy, which is not some, right-wing hegemony, but just not having the hyper woke, angry kind of person having their way because they call you racist on Twitter. I think we're going to get past that.
Yeah, I can associate myself with those remarks. I don't think it's over by any means, and so don't despair, William, because the outcome is yet to be determined. I think you saw in the Virginia governor's race, which was decided a few days ago as we speak here now.
There you go.
Where a Republican, venture capital hedge fund type guy beat Terry McAuliffe, the, former governor of the state and intimate of the Clintons and dyed-in-the-wool Democratic guy in a state that Biden carried by 10 points, and he lost. And maybe the main reason that he lost was that he got himself on the wrong side of debates about how race is handled in the curriculum in K through 12 education in his state and the role that parents should play in that. I think we saw defund the police get beaten back in a number of places in local elections, where at Minneapolis, for example, where George Floyd was murdered, the defund the police referendum was soundly defeated. I think that the underlying drive for conformity and being on the right side of the race issue, which is what has, in my opinion, allowed, abetted by social media, abetted by cancel culture, has allowed the wokesters to get as far as they have gotten. I think it's susceptible to collapse. I've been saying this for a while. I think people to a certain extent are bluffing. I think the idea that mass incarceration is a conspiracy to confine Black people in the face of stupefying rates of homicide and crime that's going on in Black communities is wearing a little bit thin. You don't hear as much about the school to prison pipeline today as you might have heard in the past. I think the idea that racism and racial discrimination explains every disparity, which is a premise of Ibram X. Kendi's argument. He says, if you've got disparities, you must have racism. Otherwise, you wouldn't have disparities. I think it's a house of cards, and I think it's falling apart. So I think the wokesters have overplayed their hands. You feel the pushback in diversity training in the corporate sector, where people are starting to object. I don't know what your inbox looks like, but I hear from a lot of academics who are objecting to loyalty oath kind of impositions that
Yep.
we see in one place or another. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But William, keep the faith.
By the way, I want to interject because we get fact checked, and it's appropriate. And sometimes I just say stuff. But I said that there were dissertations written about Lil Kim. I'm not aware of any dissertations. I know that there was somebody who was teaching a class and writing articles, but I get the feeling that he was not alone.